Hurts, doesn't it?
In Killer 7, you take the role of 7 deadly assassins, each residing in the mind of Harmon Smith as personalities that he can manifest when needed. You carry out deadly missions by dispatching the invisible terrorists, the Heaven Smiles, led by none other than Harmon Smith's arch nemesis, but also old friend, Kun Lan. Goichi Suda, Suda Goichi, or Suda51, is responsible for a lot of games that never made it to the West, and trying to summarize his Kill the Past series is a task enough. Suda began his work at Human Entertainment in 1994. Here he worked on Fire Pro Wrestling for the Super Famicom, but more notably Twilight and Moonlight Syndrome, one of which sees a few girls ghost hunting, and the other exploring the human mind and psychological horror by the medium of Zoroastrianism. No, I'm not kidding. And to think this all started from a wrestling game. Then in 1998, Human Entertainment went bankrupt. He said he could see this coming, so he founded his own company called Grasshopper Manufacture that same year, bringing along a lot of the same employees from Human Entertainment. This is where Suda began making his more notable works like The Silver Case, 25th Ward, Flower, Sun and Rain, Killer 7, and of course No More Heroes.
It's game time!
Aside from No More Heroes, most of these games flew under the radar, and even in Japan they weren't exactly praised from what I could find. They're usually hammered for either clunky controls or sometimes just being plain boring. And to that I say, expand your horizons, try that game that no one talks about, play that game you're interested in, but you're unsure anyone would care to hear about it. It's art, and I don't think there's anyone who understands that more than Suda51. I love his work because he sees games as an art form, a way to tell stories through an interactive medium. I respect him and that concept. If you couldn't tell by my names on YouTube, he's definitely influenced me, and the biggest inspiration to me can be summed up in the name of the series itself. To kill the past is to kill what burdens you.
This is too easy.
This isn't just a tagline. Kill the Past is the beating heart of Suda's stories, a metaphor for the way unresolved trauma shapes identity and choice. To refuse to face your past is to die. That's the idea of the Kill the Past series, and while many of the games have a larger political/social narrative going on in the background, the main philosophy is how one deadly individual can wreak havoc in a system of lies and corruption. So his stories always go back to the personal. This is very much so in Killer 7. It's almost like a depiction of how we as individuals can exist in a world of politics and strife, and how we aren't powerless. Many of the characters don't comment on the state of the world, rather they act in it. By coming to terms with their past, they affect the world around them and truly become free. But I reiterate, none of this feels on the nose or forced. I compare Suda to Kojima in many ways, but hot take, I feel Suda writes better than Kojima purely because Suda knows when to let the player breathe. You'll be hit with a wild scene, but you're given time to think it over when moving from one place to another, and I prefer this to the 4-hour-long cutscenes from Metal Gear. So what's this all about? Why am I harping on and on about the crux of Suda's work? Well, it's necessary to understand Killer 7, and in many ways to enjoy it fully. Before I get into the plot though, I want to take a look at the aesthetics and gameplay. While the narrative can be dense and confusing at some points, the gameplay is actually the exact opposite, and in my opinion one of the best aspects of Killer 7. Enemies come in multiple types, variations, and deadliness, but once you get the hang of their weak spots and start capping them, you'll truly feel like the deadly assassin you're playing as. Like I said in the opening, you take control of 7 different assassins, each with their own abilities and weapons. Dan Smith is the most effective and versatile of the bunch, and he's the one you're going to be getting the most mileage out of. You'll be playing as him the most. He moves at a good speed, uses a powerful revolver named the Handsome Devil, and has access to his special ability, Collateral Shot, a devastating charged blast that eliminates anything in its path.
Collateral shot. Collateral shot.
Kaede Smith has a high-powered magnum with a laser and scope, which allows her to zoom in and kill Heaven Smiles with extreme accuracy. Her gun also makes an appearance in the original Resident Evil 4 and the remake, so that's pretty cool. It's also named the Killer 7. Her special ability, Blood Shower, allows her to reveal secret paths or uncover illusions. Kevin Smith uses knives and can go completely invisible and insubstantial. Coyote Smith also uses a revolver and has access to a charged shot, but it's weaker than Dan's. Where Coyote excels is in his athletic/thief abilities. He can jump extremely high and pick any lock. Con Smith wields 2 automatic pistols. He has a fast fire rate and moves extremely fast when activating his special super speed ability, but he's balanced out with low HP. Masked Day Smith is one of my personal favorites. He's slow but uses 2 grenade launchers, has very high HP, and can reveal secret passages by destroying walls with his demolition abilities. He also can remove rubble and other things with his wrestling skills. I mean, like, bro is so cool. There's a part in the story where he freaking headbutts a bullet.
No, it's not like that. This gun is a...
Don't move, amigo.
Please, don't shoot.
Stay still.
Ow!
What were you doing here?
Mask also upgrades throughout the game, with new outfits and weapon abilities, with his final form almost looking like a mix of a Gundam, Transformer, Super Sentai. He's like fully dressed in this insane luchador outfit and has access to a charge shot that eliminates all smiles in the area.
They know who's the strongest.
Garcian Smith is the least useful, but probably the coolest. His weapon is extremely weak, that being a suppressed pistol, but he can spot and scan Heaven Smiles from really far away, and his accuracy makes it easier to shoot weak spots. His special ability is being able to resurrect any fallen member of the Killer 7 by retrieving their heads and infusing them with life. If you choose to play as Garcian or die as him when trying to retrieve a fallen member, it's game over. The core loop of the game is to use the Syndicate's abilities to solve puzzles and switch personalities to access areas of the level you couldn't before. Everything here feels extremely polished, especially the combat. Suda gets a lot of crap in his games, but he really knows how to make a simple and rewarding gameplay cycle. Shinji Mikami helps Suda with this one, and you can definitely tell with the Resident Evil style puzzles and zombie-like enemies. I want to say it again, this game is extremely polished with the combat and puzzles. Once you get the hang of it, you really start blowing through the game with ease. Not in a fast-paced, boring manner, but in a very satisfying and fulfilling way. The puzzles aren't hard, and being able to solve them with your own intuition really echoes that Resident Evil vibe. In Killer 7, you don't get to freely control your character. You're on rails. If you don't know what that means, it's basically when you're set on a direct path and can only move forward or backward using the A button. Kind of like those arcade shooters in the mall, but with some more freedom, obviously. This seems to have been one of the biggest gripes among critics, but again, this game came out when games started shifting to the whole sandbox style, vaguely open world thing. I mean, there was a Transformers game on the PS2 that was vaguely open world that's so cool. But yeah, I personally love the controls in Killer 7 though. I think it's unique and more importantly, it works. The combat in Killer 7 is also one of the things critics seem to dislike, but I love. When you enter a room, the Heaven Smiles will laugh. You then click the right trigger and you enter combat mode. The view changes to first person and you'll be able to see the outlines of the invisible Heaven Smiles. You then use your scanner to get clairvoyance and you'll be able to damage them. Aiming for the glowing spots nets you an insta-kill and some thick blood and thin blood. Thick and thin blood is used for some characters' special moves and can heal when you're low on HP. Dan, Mask, and Coyote use thin blood to charge their weapons, and thick blood is used to level up your character's abilities, allowing for more attacks and higher damage. One of the moves you can unlock by leveling up is the parry. This can save you a lot of headaches because no matter how good you get, sometimes the smiles manage to get close.
You bastard.
Once again, thin blood can also be used to heal, so it's always important to aim for weak spots. Like I said, there are puzzles, and when I first heard that, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of turned me away. You see, I love puzzle games, but I wasn't sure if it would be like those overly complicated puzzles that don't make any sense. But to my delight, the puzzles are very easy and can be solved with a little bit of exploration, which made me very happy. The puzzles are a lot like the ones in classic RE. If you've played any of the old Resident Evil games and enjoyed them, you'll have like no problem with Killer 7 and you'll probably have a great time. I also feel like the gameplay loop is helped by the stellar art style. It's rare nowadays to find a game with an actually unique art style, and I personally don't count those indie games that all look the same. That's just a personal thing. But when you finally do find a game that has a unique art style, most of the time it's like stolen, like with Marathon. That's why it's always refreshing to go back to games like this that weren't afraid to wear crazy colors and abstract designs on their sleeves. Every, and I mean literally every frame of Killer 7 looks like an art piece. This game always remains in the realm of abstraction, color gradient walls and moody lighting everywhere, even outside, and it never fails to be aesthetically pleasing. The cutscenes will sometimes shift art styles too, and gotta say, it's pretty cool to see the characters in a cartoony anime style.
Kill Dan! Give him the old handsome wink stuff!
Handsome wink!
It really drives home the feeling of being a remnant psych. You're this ink blot that juxtaposes the living world around you. It's really hard to find or pinpoint an exact moment that really stuck with me because literally every hall, room, and outside area looks so damn good. The characters also bleed this same energy. Dress suits, luchador costumes, button-ups, tank tops, bandanas, and blood-stained dresses. Like, come on, Suda, like, dog, you really cooked with this. And I'm here for it. To top that off, depending on the mission, characters will change shirts or pants, so you even get a bit of variety with the outfits, and I really liked that. Flowers, Sun and Rain, and Killer 7 probably have the most memorable art styles for me. They have this cel-shaded look that I think is rarely perfected in the modern era, but back in the PS2 and GameCube era, they really nailed it because of like the limitations of the hardware. Games like this one and Jet Set Radio come to mind when I think of like good cel shading. I also feel like the on-the-rails controls allow for really awesome camera angles, almost like making some shots in the beginning or even the end of missions, or sometimes in the middle of missions feel like a comic book panel. I really cannot get over this game's killer design. All these things, the mechanics, the art style, and core philosophy of Kill the Past are really bolstered by the insane and mind-twisting plot. I'll do my best to avoid major spoilers, but full warning, some are obviously going to slip through. That said, Killer 7 is absolutely best experienced blind. I played it that way, and that's the way I want you all to play it. So if you're unsure, please pause the video and go try it, and then come back. For everyone else, here's the crux. Killer 7 is set in 2011, after the world has achieved something almost impossible, the end of global terrorism. In this new peace, political tensions remain low, and threats of war have pretty much vanished, from the public's knowledge at least. But that peace is fragile. In eliminating organized terror, the world created a sort of vacuum, and from that void came the Heaven Smiles, supernatural terrorists who kill without reason, as the game states.
That assault was aimed at nothing other than using terrorism to create terror.
To stop them, the US turns to the only force capable of fighting back, the Killer 7, an elite group of assassins who can see and kill the Heaven Smiles with their power of clairvoyance. These assassins, the Killer 7, are all alternate personalities of one man, Harmon Smith, who works as the head of the Syndicate. The game plays out across 7 main missions, most tied to escalating tensions between Japan and the United States. But underneath all that is a much more personal story, one that belongs to Garcian Smith. Garcian is the Syndicate's self-proclaimed cleaner. He doesn't fight or even kill much. He mainly acts as the handler. He possesses the uncanny ability of resurrection and can bring fallen members of the Killer 7 back to life. But Garcian is much more than he seems. His past is buried under trauma, amnesia, and indoctrination. As the story progresses, Garcian is forced to return to the place where it all began, a school built by undercover Japanese imperialists to brainwash children to work as agents for their government. There, the truth is revealed. The Killer 7 aren't separate entities. They're personas born of Garcian's fractured psyche. After absorbing them. Years ago, he was a mere park rhino, a killer, responsible for slaughtering the original Syndicate. When Harmon found him on top of the Union Hotel, he didn't kill him. He instead inducted him into the Syndicate and made him part of the whole, able to summon the personas when needed. Standing at the side of the massacre, Garcian opens the briefcase he's carried the entire game. Inside are all the weapons of the Killer 7, confirming the past revelation that he had always been the one in control. With his memories restored and the illusion shattered, Garcian is no longer a vessel. He becomes this transcendent being, capable of acting on his own. In the end, he's given a choice: save America or save Japan. The decision determines who gets obliterated, but it's revealed at the end after killing the final Heaven Smile. The cycle continues and the world keeps spinning. Honestly, there's so much more here, and that short breakdown really doesn't do the plot justice, but trying to summarize the plot of Killer 7 is like trying to win the lottery while also trying to get struck by lightning. I also really want to drive people to go play this game, to experience the story whether it's the first or second time. I do want to focus on one really cool mission from the game, that being Encounter. Encounter is Dan's solo story. He really takes the lead here and reiterates the personal side of Suda's work. In this mission, Dan gets revenge on Curtis Blackburn, former mentor to Dan when he was a cop, and the biggest asshole to walk the earth. They make it extremely hard to even kind of find this guy interesting. If you haven't played the game, you'll know if you do play the game, because he's a horrible person. Once again, I'm not going to spoil much, but Dan really shines as a character here. He gets his standalone story and a badass new gun called the Demon Gun. I really like it because to some extent it shows Dan, despite not showing much emotion aside from anger, does know what's right, and given the opportunity, will act that out, even if it's for personal gain.
Guess it's time to close the curtains.
Trying to die in style? Give me a break, you sick old man.
While Killer 7's overall plot is vague, easily up there with Hideo Kojima levels of confusion, it's not the main narrative that pulls me in, and it's definitely not the political undertones. What really sells the game for me are the concepts and nuances. I've always been drawn to supernatural ideas in media, but I don't think any other game, movie, or book quite compares to the way Killer 7 handles them. The Smith Syndicate is made up of supernatural manifestations, highly lethal personas absorbed into a kind of all-mind, with Harmon Smith at the top. In the lore, Harmon is this omnipresent, omnipotent figure, this sort of super personality. The definition of a super personality is a deity or collection of persons constituting a transcendent personality. It's genius, and Suda deserves his flowers for that. Like I mentioned earlier, near the end of the game, the Syndicate undergoes a sort of ego death. The super personality starts breaking down as Garcian begins uncovering his past, and eventually realizes he was the dominant self all along. Reborn, no longer fragmented or restrained, Garcian Smith, a mere park reiner, kills the past and transcends it. But it doesn't just stop there. There are so many little things that grab my attention. The focus on surveillance is something that always stands out in Suda's games. Cameras, TVs, even the moon are all watching. Not just the characters, but you. There's this ever-present force constantly looming over the world, almost like it already knows how things are going to play out. Speaking of TV, one of my favorite aspects of Killer 7 is how the Smith Syndicate manifests through electronic devices, further cementing the idea that these personalities are almost like ghosts. I like whenever the game changes your character through the camera lens. I love how the footage cuts out, like we're watching events unfold through security footage, and we're not really supposed to see what's happening, so maybe someone like Harmon or someone from the government is cutting the feed so we don't see what's happening. I also love the way the different characters wait in the TV while you flip through the channels to pick who to play as. It's almost like they're just chilling in this void, waiting to be called upon by the higher personality, just waiting in Harmon's mind, or technically Garcian's mind, until he needs them to take over the psych body. I also really like some of the lines they say when you switch to their channel.
I feel my blood rushing through my body. Yes, this is it. The feeling, it's coming back to me. The sensation of killing. The doom and darkness. The dark streets. They're calling me to the ultimate ring.
The way the different members of the Syndicate move, act, and appear almost unnatural will always be one of my favorite things about them. Light seems to avoid them in some areas, shadows always cover their faces. It's like they're not really there, just phantoms walking around in human skin. I know I'm hyping it up a lot and speaking like a nerd, but I love the game, okay? It's a great game, and I think it was executed fantastically. Just the sinister concept of Harmon absorbing the personalities, or technically it's Garcian, but you know, as a whole, Harmon absorbing the personalities of the assassins, you know, people who have been murdered extremely violently, only to use them forever as like hitmen in a metaphorical game of chess with Kun Lan. It's narratively consistent, but also shows the stellar writing ability that Suda has, in my opinion. That's another thing, just the greater concept of Harmon and Kun Lan's relationship, their necessary frenemy dynamic, Garcian's transcendence, and the future. Kun Lan's relationship with Harmon is really interesting in its own right. It's shown and said throughout the game that they're mortal enemies, yet they laugh, play chess, and hang out like old friends. It's almost like they know they'll be reborn, that the cycle will continue on and on. They'll truly never die. So they've accepted it. They've become friends in a way, even though their ideals completely clash. In terms of narrative, they represent political ideologies, but in terms of lore, it creates this weird tension, this almost disturbing sense of security, like they know that in the end, everything will play out exactly the way it should. Garcian Smith is probably one of my favorite fictional characters ever, not just in design, but in narrative weight. Killer 7, at its core, is about Garcian, or Amir, or whatever you want to call him. Throughout the game, we follow his arc, which leads to his enlightenment when the dormant young Harmon personality reveals to him the truth. He is Amir, and he's been the dominant personality this entire time. We never learn how Garcian became dominant, but we know this isn't the first time something like this has happened. When Garcian, for the first time, opens the briefcase he's been carrying the entire game and finds the weapons of all the Killer 7 assassins, that revelation finally breaks him. The failed suicide attempt left Amir with amnesia and personality disorder, making him the perfect candidate for induction into the Smith Syndicate by Harmon Smith. But once he begins remembering his past and realizes what happened, the super personality breaks down. Garcian fully becomes dominant, hence why he has all the Smith's weapons. And that moment leads to Amir becoming something more, almost godlike, like Harmon, and also like young Harmon said, he wasn't human. At the end of the game, Garcian's transformation is complete. He's changed clothes. He's got this really cool black suit with subtle purple undertones. His eyes glow green, and he's using the golden revolver he used to kill all the Smith Syndicate back in the day. I also want to bring up a line that Kun Lan says early in the game.
The size of the world has changed. It's changed to the size where you can control it with your hands, just like a PDA. The world will keep getting smaller.
By the end of the game, Amir fully restored literally does that. He changes the world with a single decision. Like a PDA, he presses one metaphorical button, or trigger, and the world shifts. He kills the past and transcends it. That's a reoccurring theme in the Kill the Past series, how personal decisions can ripple into broader consequences. We see that in other Suda games, like the concept of Kamui in the Silver Case, but to me, Garcian/Amir is more narratively satisfying, because we make the choice. We walk through his journey and we see how one man's decision to face his past and to kill it shapes the future of the entire world. It's very cool and perfectly executed in my opinion. And speaking of the future, we do get to see that at the end of Killer 7. We jump ahead 100 years and Kun Lan and Harmon are still at it. The cycle hasn't broken. Harmon's formed a new Smith Syndicate and Kun Lan is leading a new group of Heaven Smiles called the Heaven's Tears and later the Final Smiles. But this time it's not Garcian or even Dan is the dominant personality. It's Mask de Smith. And man, I really wish we got to see that story play out. Mask is easily one of the coolest members of the Syndicate, and just the idea that he's like the main guy undergoing some form of what Garcian and Amir went through, Garcian or Amir, whatever you want to call him, just opens up so many possibilities and what his past may look like, considering the fact that the Super Fire Pro Wrestling game is canon to the Kill the Past series, technically. It would be kind of cool to see how Suda probably would have connected those, but also knowing him, we probably won't see Mask's story at all, but I can dream. Killer 7 is one of those games I never uninstall. It's always just sitting there on my desktop and I'll click on it every once in a while and have a blast dispatching Heaven Smiles and solving puzzles. I really cannot recommend this game enough, and the entire Kill the Past series for that matter. Sadly, Moonlight Syndrome and Flower, Sun, and Rain aren't translated to English yet, but I know there's a few people working on them. I mean, there is the DS port to FSR, but I really want to be able to play the PS2 version and see Sumio Mondo running around in all his PS2 glory. If you've made it this far, I really want to thank you guys all so much for the support. We hit 21,000 views on my last video, which is absolutely mental, and I'm currently, as of recording the audio, at 600 subscribers, and that's even wilder to me. So I just want to thank you guys all. I have wanted to do a video on Killer 7 since at least 2022, when I really got into it, and that was before this channel was even considered, and I wanted to just make something on Killer 7 so bad, and the fact that I'm now doing that, but also people are gonna watch it, you know. I don't know how many, but you know, at least a few people are gonna watch it is just crazy to me, and I just want to thank you guys. So thank you so much, and I'm just gonna call it here. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.